You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Syracuse football released its depth chart for its Saturday matchup at noon against Holy Cross. We just went over the wide receivers. Now let's just talk about the defense in general, the whole unit, because the whole unit got shaken up a little bit in large part for what happened, what went right, what went wrong against Stanford. So the staff, they're not afraid to make changes, guys. Let's start off with number one. True freshman, 4-star Marcellus Barnes is officially a starting corner for Syracuse football, at least for this week. For the first few games of the season, he was listed as a starter, but he would be him and Devin Grant would be together on the depth chart, and it would be Marcellus Barnes or Devin Grant or Marcellus Barnes. There was that word "or" in the middle of their two names, so they would rotate back and forth. However, on this depth chart, there is no "or." Marcellus Barnes is listed as a starting cornerback on this team. He is ahead of the next person, which is Greg Delane, also coming back from injury, but there's no "or" there. There's no "or." Marcellus Barnes is a starting corner, and this staff might view Marcellus Barnes as the overall cornerback one. And I'm going to explain to you why I think that. So before Marcellus Barnes was knocked out of the Stanford game with back spasms, I don't think it was anything serious based on what Fran Brown was saying, and they feel good about him potentially playing this week. But he was knocked out due to back spasms. Before that, he was shadowing Alec Iomanner, the talented Stanford wide receiver who beat us in the end because, well, they didn't double team him. But you get the idea. Marcellus Barnes was matched up with him one-on-one. And not only that, he was traveling with him. Most of the time with corners, they stick to one side of the field. But with Marcellus Barnes and Alec Iomanner, he was following him. He was following Alec Iomanner until he was knocked out of the game with the back spasms. So it's possible that this staff views him as the overall cornerback one on the team, but at the very least, from what we definitively know on the depth chart, he is a starting corner. So what happened to Devin Grant? Did Devin Grant fall off the face of the planet? No, he did not. Devin Grant is still in the lineup as a starter, in fact. Devin Grant is the Buffalo transfer from this offseason. He is now the starting star, formerly Justin Barron's position. And to not complicate things too much, he is the starting nickel, back, which is the fifth defensive back on the field. Syracuse runs a 4-2-5 defensive scheme, so that would make Devin Grant a starter on the defense. Still, he is just changing his position. Now, the reason why they're making this move, and Fran Brown mentioned it, it's because during the Stanford game, they made the move, and they wanted to get all of their best players on the field at the same time. So that is why they made this decision. Totally fine with that. Let's see how Devin Grant holds up as the starting nickelback for this team. Now let's move on, because it's a ripple effect, right? We talked about how the starting corner is Marcellus Barnes, the backup's Greg Delane. What happened to Devin Grant? Now we know what happened to Devin Grant, but what happened to Justin Barron? Because he just took Justin Barron's position. I'm glad you asked that question. Justin Barron, normally the starting nickel, and he was honorable mention All ACC last season with it on one hand for about half the year. Well, he's now the starting weak side linebacker, which is very interesting. The eye test and Pro Football Focus will tell you that Justin Barron in the first two games of the season was not on his A game. He was not on his A game. The eye test will tell you that, but more importantly, Pro Football Focus will tell you that with their grades. Against Ohio, he did not have a good day. A 42.9 grade on Pro Football Focus. That's bad. Now, he did improve against Georgia Tech, but still it's not very good. It's 59.9. There is significant improvement, but it's like you're going from the basement to the ground level. You're not rising. You're rising a lot, but relative to the surroundings, you haven't really risen at all. But the encouraging thing about Justin Barron is that he did play much better in the Stanford game. He had a 71.4 grade, which is pretty solid, and it was actually third on the defense. And his tackling grade was a 77.2, which you're getting on the almost the elite territory of Pro Football Focus, a 77.2 tackling grade. That's really good. That is really, really good. So he moved to linebacker during the game, and he played his best game of the season. So overall, it worked out. And that is why the staff is continuing with this lineup. So Justin Barron is now the starting weak side linebacker for Syracuse football for this game against Holy Cross on Saturday. So again, a ripple effect. If Justin Barron is now the starting weak side linebacker, where is Derek McDonald? Derek McDonald is now the starting middle linebacker, with James Hurd officially as the backup middle linebacker. Once again, Syracuse is playing a little bit shorthanded on defense. They do not have all ACC linebacker Marlo Wax in the lineup. He is still recovering from his lower body injury. So with that, Syracuse, for the first few games, had James Hurd as a starting linebacker on this team. Not anymore. Derek McDonald is now the starting middle linebacker. They made that change during the Stanford game, and McDonald graded really well. He had a 77.8 Pro Football Focus grade at middle linebacker against Stanford. It was one of his best games of the season, a bright spot on the defense. So I could see why Syracuse, once again, is maintaining that level. They are keeping Derek McDonald as the starting middle linebacker for this team. Okay, so those are the 4 changes that Syracuse football made on defense. It's a lot, so I will summarize it for you all right now in this moment, okay? Marcellus Barnes, the true freshman, is now a starting corner. Devin Grant is now a starting nickelback. That is instead of Justin Barron. Justin Barron is now the weak side linebacker for this team, the starting weak side linebacker. He played really well against Stanford in that position. And finally, Derek McDonald is now the starting middle linebacker instead of James Hurd. James Hurd is now the backup middle linebacker. Tons of changes to Syracuse's defense